He comes out and he goes back to town and he gathers together a group that we're gonna go find the stuff again. And people are excited about it. And a couple of weeks go by and everyone's gathered to go on the expedition. He never shows. The expedition goes nowhere, and that's really the last we've heard of it.
A mysterious area of the Grand Canyon has been completely shut down.
There's areas of the Grand Canyon you cannot explore.
Off limits, heavily guarded, and surrounded by swirling conspiracy. Black helicopters patrol the skies, and the government offers no clear answers. In 1909, an explorer reported finding ancient tunnels.
Started digging around it, brushing away the mud, pulled it out, and there was this giant stone head gazing back at him with these obsidian eyes.
Massive skeletons and Egyptian-style artifacts deep within the canyon. Then he vanished. The Smithsonian called it a hoax, but Joe Rogan isn't convinced. Could this be the biggest cover-up in American history? What's buried in the Grand Canyon that no one's allowed to see? Join us as we find out all about the area in the Grand Canyon that no one can enter.
America is the most plausible and the most likely home base for a lost civilization.
Black helicopters and government secrets. Most visitors to the Grand Canyon stick to the tourist paths, snapping photos at designated viewpoints and buying souvenirs. But venture towards certain remote sections of the canyon, and something strange happens. Warning signs appear. Security increases. And if someone pushes too far into these restricted areas, black helicopters arrive within minutes. The Grand Canyon spans over 1,900 square miles of rugged terrain. While most of this vast wilderness remains open to hikers and explorers, specific zones carry strict federal restrictions. The government labels these areas as dangerous, too risky for public access. Officials point to unstable rock formations, wildlife protection needs, and general safety concerns. On the surface, this explanation sounds reasonable, yet experienced canyon guides and local researchers have noticed troubling patterns. The restricted zones don't always match the most dangerous geological areas. Some forbidden sections appear stable and accessible, while truly hazardous cliff faces remain open to the public. The inconsistency raises questions about the real reasons behind these restrictions. Multiple witnesses report similar encounters when approaching these off-limits areas. Unmarked aircraft appear seemingly from nowhere, circling overhead before landing nearby. Military personnel emerge, politely, but firmly escorting trespassers away. No arrests occur, but the message stays clear. Certain parts of the canyon remain forbidden. The most striking incidents involve Apache combat helicopters, not Park Service aircraft or police choppers, but full military hardware. These encounters happen in areas where no military bases exist for hundreds of miles. The nearest significant military installation sits over 200 miles away. The speed of response suggests constant surveillance of these zones. Local Native American tribes have watched these activities for decades. Tribal elders speak quietly about increased government presence in areas their ancestors considered sacred. Some mention ancient stories about underground chambers and hidden passages, but most prefer not to discuss these matters with outsiders. Government agencies offer standard explanations when questioned. This pattern of deflection only deepens public curiosity about what lies beneath the canyon floor. The restricted zones share another curious feature: unusual geological formations that don't match the surrounding rock structures. Satellite images reveal geometric patterns and straight lines that appear artificial rather than natural. These formations sit precisely within the most heavily guarded areas. Independent researchers have documented flight patterns above these zones. Regular surveillance flights occur at specific intervals, suggesting systematic monitoring rather than random patrols. The consistency implies that something valuable or sensitive requires protection. The Grand Canyon's size makes complete surveillance nearly impossible, yet these particular zones receive constant attention. Resources dedicated to monitoring these areas exceed typical park security measures. The level of protection suggests federal agencies consider whatever lies beneath worth a significant investment. Whether the restrictions protect archaeological discoveries, classified military projects, or genuine safety hazards remains unclear. The government's unwillingness to provide detailed explanations only fuels speculation about hidden secrets within America's most famous natural wonder. The forbidden zones continue attracting curious visitors willing to risk confronting military personnel for answers. Each encounter adds another piece to a puzzle that grows more complex with time. What could be so dangerous that it requires military-grade protection and decades of absolute secrecy? Kincaids' underground Citadel, Joe Rogan, covering every possibility, recounts an old story. It is said G.E. Kincaid stepped off his small wooden boat along the Colorado River in 1909, expecting to find gold deposits before President Roosevelt declared the canyon off-limits to mining. Instead, he discovered something that would challenge everything historians believed about ancient America. Kincaid noticed unusual stains in the rock wall about 2,000 feet above the river. The discoloration looked artificial, different from natural mineral deposits that typically marked valuable ore. He secured his boat and climbed toward the strange markings, fighting through dense desert brush and loose gravel. What he found defied explanation. Carved steps wound up the canyon wall, hundreds of them, precisely cut into solid sandstone. These weren't natural formations or crude Native American pathways. The craftsmanship suggested advanced engineering techniques and sophisticated tools that shouldn't have existed in this remote area thousands of years ago. The steps led to a carefully constructed entrance, clearly man-made and deliberately hidden. Kincaid lit his lantern and stepped inside. The tunnel stretched far beyond his light could reach, with smooth walls covered in symbols that resembled Egyptian hieroglyphics, but contained unfamiliar elements that didn't match any known ancient writing system. As Kincaid explored deeper, the scope of his discovery became overwhelming. The underground complex contained hundreds of interconnected rooms, storage areas, and chambers large enough to house entire communities. He estimated the space could shelter 50,000 people, larger than most cities existing anywhere in the world during that time. The artifacts he found challenged established archaeological timelines. Copper tools displayed advanced metallurgy techniques. Pottery showed sophisticated artistic styles. Most shocking were the mummies, dozens of them, preserved in ways that suggested knowledge of complex burial practices centuries before such methods appeared in other civilizations. In one central chamber sat a massive statue that Kincaid described as Buddha-like, but not quite matching any known Buddhist artwork. The figure's features suggested Asian influences, yet the craftsmanship bore elements reminiscent of Egyptian sculpture. This cultural mixing made no sense according to accepted theories about ancient American civilizations. Kincaid documented everything meticulously before returning to civilization. His notes described granaries still containing ancient seeds, workshops equipped with smelting equipment, and dining halls capable of serving thousands. The underground city represented a level of organization and technology that mainstream archaeology insisted never existed in pre-Columbian America. The Phoenix Gazette published Kincaid's account in April 1909, describing the discovery as potentially the most significant archaeological find in North American history. The article mentioned that Smithsonian Institution scientists were organizing an official expedition to study the site further. Professor S.A. Jordan allegedly led this follow-up expedition with a team of 40 researchers. Initial reports suggested they confirmed Kincaids' findings and discovered even more extensive chambers and artifacts. Then, abruptly, all communication stopped. No further articles appeared. No scientific papers were published. Both Kincaid and Jordan disappeared from historical records entirely. Modern researchers have found no employment records for either man at the Smithsonian. The institution claims no knowledge of any Grand Canyon expeditions during that period. Critics argue the entire story was fabricated by newspaper sensationalism, early clickbait designed to sell papers during an era when outrageous stories competed for reader attention. Yet the restricted zones protecting these exact canyon areas suggest something significant lies hidden beneath the desert floor, waiting to rewrite history books. But if Kincaid's discovery was fake, just newspaper fiction, why did the Smithsonian send an official expedition to investigate it? And why did America's most trusted scientific institution work so hard to erase it? Where evidence goes to die. The Smithsonian Institution holds more power over American archaeology than any organization in the world, controlling what discoveries reach the public and which ones vanish forever into storage warehouses. Professor S.A. Jordan's expedition should have been the story of the century. 40 researchers, unlimited funding, and official Smithsonian backing to investigate the most significant archaeological find in North American history. The initial reports confirmed Kincaid's discoveries and uncovered even more extensive underground chambers filled with ancient artifacts. Then everything stopped. No follow-up articles appeared in newspapers. No scientific journals published research papers. No museum exhibitions displayed the artifacts. The Smithsonian's official records contain no mention of Jordan, Kincaid, or any Grand Canyon expeditions during 1909. When modern researchers request information about these men, the institution claims they never existed. This pattern of disappearing evidence extends far beyond the Grand Canyon mystery. Ancient aliens and reptilian gods. Long before any European explorer set foot in North America, the Hopi people possessed detailed oral histories about their origins that sound remarkably similar to what Kincaid claimed to discover. According to Hopi tradition, their ancestors didn't simply migrate to the Grand Canyon region, they came from it. The Hopi creation story describes a time when their people lived in vast underground cities, protected by beings they called the Ant People. These weren't ordinary ants, but humanoid creatures with pale skin and large insect-like eyes who possessed advanced technology. The Zuni and Acoma cultures describe encounters with a race of giants and reptilian shapeshifters who emerged from deep canyon caves before transforming into human form. These aren't isolated stories. Flood myths appear in cultures worldwide, often accompanied by accounts of godlike beings who descended from the sky after the waters receded, bringing gifts of civilization, writing, astronomy, agriculture, and metallurgy. The advanced copperworking techniques Kincaid allegedly found in the Grand Canyon caves match exactly what many flood myths describe these sky beings teaching to primitive humans. Archaeological evidence across the American Southwest supports the possibility of ancient advanced civilizations. The precision stonework at sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia and the massive underground cities of Derinkuyu in Turkey prove that ancient peoples possessed far more sophisticated engineering capabilities than mainstream archaeology typically acknowledges. Even the Egyptian-style hieroglyphics Kincaid reported finding aren't as impossible as they might seem. Ancient Egyptian artifacts have been discovered in locations as far-flung as Australia and the Grand Canyon's neighbor states, suggesting transoceanic contact thousands of years before Columbus. The most compelling aspect of these native legends isn't their fantastical elements, but their specificity. Hopi prophecies describe waiting for a messenger to return from underground temples, bringing news of when the ancient lands will be restored to the first people. Tribal elders still gather at sunset, watching the horizon for signs of this prophesied return. If Kincaids' discovery was real, it would validate thousands of years of native oral history, while simultaneously threatening fundamental assumptions about human civilization's timeline and development. These ancient prophecies might explain why modern explorers who venture into forbidden Grand Canyon zones are met with swift and overwhelming military responses. But what are they really protecting? The search continues. Jerry Wills and his wife, Kathy, spent years researching Kincaids' original expedition route, using historical records and geological surveys to pinpoint the likely location of the alleged underground city. Their methodical approach led them to a remote section of the canyon where they discovered artifacts from the early 1900s scattered across the landscape. Metal fragments, old camping equipment, and carved markings that matched the time frame of Kincaids' expedition. The area sits within a zone officially designated as off-limits to all civilian access, supposedly for safety reasons. But when Jerry's team attempted to document their findings, they encountered something far more sophisticated than park rangers concerned about tourist safety. Within minutes of setting up their equipment, an unmarked aircraft appeared overhead, circling their position repeatedly despite the area being designated as a strict no-fly zone. The plane wasn't alone. Other exploration teams have reported similar encounters. Explorers who have managed brief access before being turned away report finding cement platforms built near canyon edges, complete with heavy-duty anchoring systems and rappelling hardware. Official explanations claim these structures prevent rockfalls, but their placement and construction suggest something far more deliberate: permanent infrastructure designed for regular access to locations supposedly too dangerous for anyone to visit. The restricted zones themselves reveal another layer of the mystery through their geographic naming conventions. Within the forbidden areas of the Grand Canyon sit locations with names like Isis Temple, Tower of Set, Horus Temple, and Cheops Pyramid. These aren't casual designations. They're official government survey names that specifically reference ancient Egyptian deities and monuments. The pattern extends beyond Egyptian references. The government's explanation for these names centers on a single geologist who supposedly had an interest in ancient cultures. But the concentration of such specific mythological references within the exact areas where underground cities were allegedly found, combined with the intense military protection of these zones, suggests something more deliberate than one person's cultural interests. Modern attempts to explore these areas have revealed additional anomalies. Steel gates now block many previously accessible caves throughout the Grand Canyon, officially installed to protect bat populations. However, these gates often seal caves that show clear signs of human modification, carved passages, worked stone, and ventilation systems that extend far deeper than natural bat habitats would require. The most telling aspect of the modern cover-up isn't what officials say about these restricted zones, but what they refuse to discuss. When pressed for specific explanations about military responses to civilian explorers or the reasoning behind permanent access restrictions, government representatives consistently deflect to vague safety concerns while providing no detailed justification for the level of security deployed. The truth of the Grand Canyon is buried beneath America's most iconic landmark, guarded by black helicopters and government secrets, waiting for the day when ancient prophecies finally force these forbidden chambers back into the light, or when a relentless podcaster keeps digging. If ancient civilizations were advanced enough to build underground cities housing 50,000 people, what other impossible archaeological evidence has been systematically erased from history? Why would the government deploy Apache combat helicopters to protect empty caves, unless they're not actually empty? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.